Good afternoon, everyone. Subcommittee will come to order. Welcome to the Subcommittee Ways and Means Trade Subcommittee. Welcome all the witnesses and all the folks in the audience here today to listen to the testimony that we're anxious to hear. And I'm sure you're anxious to get the questions that we have for you to share additional information. But before we get started, let me just make a few comments. As many of you know, U.S. farmers, ranchers, and growers right now are caught in the middle of an international crossfire. First, they are hurt because products such as equipment, chemicals, and fertilizer, which they need to run lean and competitive agriculture operations, have been included on the administration's Section 301 list, as well as the steel and aluminum they need. And then adding insult to injury, they are the first to face retaliatory tariffs from across the globe as countries react to U.S. trade policy decisions. In fact, U.S. agriculture now are facing retaliatory tariffs from the EU, from China, Mexico, Canada, Turkey, Russia, and India. Now, I know that the administration didn't intend for the U.S. agriculture to be hurt or harmed, but the damage is entirely predictable. As some of you know well, low commodity prices have been sort of the practice of the last several years, very challenging for American farmers to even survive and exist and operate at a profit. And what we're hearing from farmers, ranchers, producers, and fishermen in my home state of Washington and many other states across the country is that U.S. agriculture just isn't in a healthy place, and that's putting it mildly. Most of our agricultural producers today rely heavily on export markets, and unfortunately, many of these farmers and producers are now facing the loss of not just one of their top international export markets, not just their number one market, but their number two market, their number three market, and their number four market, all at once. They are facing severe and devastating uncertainty, and that goes right to their profitability. Now, it's important to acknowledge that the President is absolutely correct that we need to stand up to China's unfair, predatory trade practices, including overcapacity in steel and aluminum, IP theft, and other Chinese policies that endanger the innovative technologies developed by U.S. companies. As we take on China, though, we must take into account the effects of U.S. agriculture, like the examples we'll hear today. I've heard heart-wrenching stories in some cases of farmers and families already scrambling to make ends meet, who are forced to make difficult decisions to cope with the uncertainty caused by these tariffs. They don't know what and how much they should plant. They are having trouble getting financing, and they are forced to put expansion plans on hold. Entire rural communities are affected when farmers are struggling. Their supplies and workers and even banks, restaurants, and school districts are struggling. And as we learn about the challenges that many people in the ag sector are facing, it's critical to remember that many family farmers have invested everything that they have in their farms, their orchards, or their ranches. And sometimes these have been in their families for generations. This is serious business. It is their livelihood. It is their life. And even worse, our small farmers and producers are suffering the most because they already are running on tight margins without the economies of scale that the larger producers can benefit from. In Washington State, one winery has already lost $500,000 in export sales after China imposed tariffs in retaliation for the Section 232 tariffs. Their shipments dropped by 50% in the second quarter alone. In another sector, USDA reported that China canceled nearly $140 million in soybean contracts at the end of June. And as you will hear in a few minutes from our witnesses from Washington State, cherry producers are really feeling the pinch during their short cherry season as they face an additional 25% tariff in China. This is their top export market. Today, we'll hear from a broad range of American agricultural producers about the real-world impact of increased tariffs. And I'm eager to hear from our witnesses today and learn how these tariffs are affecting their farms, families, and communities. Our hearing will focus on both U.S. tariff increases related to the Section 232 action on steel and aluminum and the Section 301 tariffs on China, as well as retaliatory tariffs from around the world. And I look forward to learning from our excellent panel of witnesses today. Some have traveled a long way to be here with us, and we'll continue to engage with the President, with the members of the administration, and how we reach a durable solution to the challenging trade agenda. And I, for one, have urged the President to restore the exemptions from steel and aluminum tariffs for Mexico and Canada. I've twice mentioned this to Secretary Ross, and he has made a promise that he would mention it to the President and seek an answer from him on this issue. These are two of America's most trusted allies that are also incredibly important markets for our agriculture exports. At the same time, I am encouraging the President to push forward with our negotiations with our international trading partners, including with China, to find a solution that evens the playing field for American workers, manufacturers, service providers, and farmers, while at the same time making sure that farmers don't become collateral damage. We also cannot lose sight of the cost of inaction when it comes to new markets. When our trading partners move forward and make other agreements, and we're not included, our farmers, our workers, and our businesses fall behind. They lose their market.